The crystalline halls of Zenther Prime glowed softly as the Council of Sages gathered for their meeting. These ancient beings had ruled the Zithari Empire for thousands of years. Their empire controlled 47 star systems, and their military power was feared across the galaxy. Elder Vorin stood at the center of the obsidian chamber. His silver robes caught the pale blue light as he spoke. "We are here to discuss the planet called Earth. Our scouts report it has valuable minerals and water. The species living there, called humans, are primitive. They barely understand space travel." Warlord Miho stepped forward. He was young for a Zithari, only 200 years old. His military uniform was covered in medals and decorations. "Honored elders, I have studied these humans carefully. They are weak and divided. They have nearly 200 different nations on one planet. They fight each other constantly. Their weapons are outdated compared to ours. We can conquer them easily." Admiral June nodded in agreement. "I command the Third Fleet. My soldiers are ready. We will land in a place the humans call Siberia. It is mostly empty land with few people but many resources. We will take control before their governments can even meet to discuss what to do." Most of the council members murmured their approval. The plan seemed perfect. But then Sage Kyung spoke. She was the oldest member of the council. Her skin was so thin it looked almost transparent. "Wait, there is something in our old archives. A warning from long ago." "A warning?" Miho asked, barely hiding his smile. "What kind of warning?" Kyung's voice was quiet but firm. "It says, never engage humanity in terrestrial combat operations. Never fight them on their land." Miho laughed. "Respected elder, that record is 800 years old. It was written when we still used primitive technology. We are much stronger now, and the humans have not changed at all. They are still using chemical explosives and metal bullets." "The warning was preserved for a reason," Kyung insisted. Admiral June spoke up. "Elder Kyung, I mean no disrespect, but we cannot let old superstitions guide our military decisions. I have analyzed their defenses. Their armies are scattered. Their leaders argue more than they act. By the time they organize a response, we will control an entire continent." The council voted. Only Sage Kyung voted against the invasion. "The decision is made," Elder Vorin announced. "The Third Fleet will proceed to Earth." After the meeting ended, Kyung approached Miho in the corridor. "Young warrior, I have lived through 17 wars. I have seen great empires fall because they became too confident. That warning in our archives survived through our civilization's darkest times. Very few records from that era still exist. Someone thought this warning was important enough to preserve. You should ask yourself why." Miho bowed politely. "I understand your concern, elder. But we cannot let fear of the unknown stop us. The humans will learn that the Zithari Empire is not to be challenged." After he left, Kyung returned to the archive room alone. She entered her security codes and accessed the oldest files. Most records from 800 years ago had been destroyed or corrupted. But she found one entry that still had some readable information. The text appeared on the screen, flickering and incomplete. "Warning. Species, human. Planet, Earth. Contact location, Stalingrad, Russia. Zithari Force, 43rd Legion, 12,000 soldiers. Result, complete defeat. 0 survivors. Do not engage in land war. Humans do not fight to win. They fight until you lose. Avoid territory called Russia at all costs." The rest of the file was corrupted and unreadable. Kyung closed her eyes and felt a deep sadness. Young warriors never listened to warnings. They would have to learn the hard way just as all the young ones before them had learned. She only hoped that some of them would survive long enough to understand the lesson. 3 weeks later, 50,000 Zithari soldiers prepared to land on Earth. Their armor was strong. Their weapons were advanced. Their training was perfect. They chose to land in Siberia, Russia. It was October 15th. Winter was coming. The Zithari drop ships descended through the gray October sky. Snow was already falling lightly across the Siberian tundra. Admiral June watched from his command ship as thousands of soldiers landed and began setting up forward operating base Sigma. "Report," June ordered. "Landing successful, Admiral. 0 casualties. Perimeter established. The humans have detected us. Their military is mobilizing," his communications officer said. June smiled. Everything was going according to plan. Within 3 days, the Zithari had built a fortress covering 200 kilometers. Their energy shields glowed blue against the white landscape. Human missiles struck the shields and exploded harmlessly. Human jets flew overhead but their weapons could not penetrate Zithari defenses. Warlord Miho walked through the base inspecting the troops. The humans are running away. Their soldiers retreat every time we advance. This will be over in weeks, not months. But Colonel Hannah, watching from a hidden position 15 kilometers away, smiled as she spoke into her radio. Let them think they are winning. Fall back to secondary positions. Destroy everything useful as you retreat. Burn the fuel depots. Collapse the bridges. Leave them nothing. The temperature dropped to -10 degrees Celsius. Then -20. The Zithri soldiers began to notice their equipment behaving strangely. Their environmental suits, designed for 100 different alien worlds, started malfunctioning in the cold. "Admiral, we are experiencing technical issues," reported the chief engineer. "The cold is affecting our power cells. They are losing charge faster than expected." "Compensate. Increase power output," June ordered. "We are trying, sir. But this cold is beyond our testing parameters." Then the mud came. The ground, frozen on top but wet underneath, turned into thick, sticky mud that swallowed vehicles. The Zithri called it impossible terrain. The Russians called it Rasputitsa, and they had been dealing with it for centuries. A Zithri patrol of 20 soldiers went missing near a small village. Search teams found their equipment 3 days later, frozen solid in a block of ice. The soldiers were gone. No bodies. No evidence of what happened. The reports started coming in faster. Supply convoys ambushed on forest roads. Outposts going silent in the night. Soldiers found frozen to death in their sleep, their heaters mysteriously disabled. General Doyen sat in his command bunker, drinking hot tea and watching the reports. "They are spread thin now. Good. Send in the hunters." Russian special forces, wearing white camouflage, moved through the forests like ghosts. They knew every hill, every frozen stream, every hiding spot. They struck at night and disappeared before dawn. A Zithri officer captured one Russian soldier during a firefight. He brought the man to Admiral June for interrogation. "Your resistance is pointless," June said through a translator. "We have superior technology. Superior numbers. You cannot win." The Russian soldier, a young man named Tamin, laughed despite his injuries. "Win? We are not trying to win. We are just waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you to understand where you are." Tamin coughed. "You think you invaded Earth? No. You invaded Russia. There is a difference." "What difference could possibly matter?" Tamin smiled. "You will learn. Everyone who invades Russia learns. Napoleon learned. Hitler learned. Now you will learn." The temperature dropped to -30. Then -40. Zithri soldiers began suffering from frostbite despite their advanced suits. Medical facilities overflowed. More soldiers were dying from the cold than from combat. Warlord Miho demanded answers. "Why are our suits failing?" "They were tested in extreme conditions." "Not these conditions, sir," the engineer explained nervously. "This combination of extreme cold, wind, and moisture is degrading our systems faster than we can repair them." Admiral June stood in his heated command center, looking at the casualty reports. In 6 weeks they had lost 3,000 soldiers. Only 500 had died in combat. The rest had frozen to death, gotten lost in blizzards, or simply vanished. He opened his personal files and began reading about human military history. He searched for information about Russia. What he found made his blood run cold. Every major invasion of Russia had failed. Every single one. The French Empire. The German Reich. Armies of hundreds of thousands, defeated not by Russian soldiers alone, but by the Russian winter. June looked out the window. The snow was falling heavier now. The wind howled. It was only November. Winter had just begun. 2 months had passed since the invasion began. Admiral June stood in the command center, staring at the map of their occupied territory. Red marks indicated lost outposts. Blue marks showed active bases. There were far more red marks than blue. "Status report," June said quietly. His second officer, Commander Suki, read from her tablet. 18 outposts have gone silent in the past week. We have lost contact with 7 supply convoys. Casualties from cold exposure now exceed combat casualties by a ratio of 4 to 1. Morale is at critical levels. And the humans? They continue their pattern. They do not defend positions. They retreat, destroy everything useful, and attack our supply lines. It is like fighting ghosts. June had finally understood the truth. The humans were not trying to win battles. They were trying to make the Zithri lose the war slowly, painfully, through cold and hunger and exhaustion. A Russian tank column appeared on their sensors. Outdated machines, 70 years old by human standards. Warlord Miho sent his best mechanized division to destroy them. The tanks led the Zithri into a narrow valley. Then Russian artillery opened fire from the hills. The valley became a killing ground. The entire Zithri division was destroyed in 40 minutes. Colonel Hanna watched through binoculars as the aliens retreated in chaos. They rely too much on their technology. They do not understand that sometimes the old ways work better. The temperature dropped to -50°C. Zithri soldiers could no longer leave their heated buildings without risking death within minutes. Their vehicles stopped working. Their weapons jammed. Their communication systems failed in the cold. But the Russian soldiers kept fighting. They wore thick winter coats and fur hats. They drank vodka to stay warm. They sang songs around fires at night. They did not seem bothered by the cold at all. A Zithri scout reported something strange. "Admiral, the humans are celebrating. They are having parties in the middle of a war zone." Celebrating what? A holiday they call New Year. They are setting off fireworks and drinking alcohol. Some of them are dancing in the snow. June could not understand it. How could they celebrate while fighting a war? But then he realized that was the point. The Russians were comfortable here. This was their home. The cold did not frighten them. The winter did not depress them. They had lived with it their entire lives. The Zithri Empire sent reinforcements. 30,000 fresh troops arrived in January. They landed to find forward operating base Sigma abandoned. The original soldiers had simply disappeared. Some had frozen to death. Some had been captured. Some had deserted and tried to walk to the landing zones, only to die in the blizzards. General Doyen ordered a major offensive. Not to destroy the aliens but to push them together, to concentrate them in smaller areas where the winter would do most of the work. News spread across Earth. The aliens who had threatened the entire planet were trapped in Siberia, dying slowly in the Russian winter. Other nations sent help. American volunteers arrived. Chinese soldiers came. European special forces joined the fight. For the first time in human history, nations that usually argued with each other united for a single purpose. A German volunteer named Juno fought alongside Russian troops. "I never thought I would fight in Russia defending it," he joked. His Russian companion, a woman named Samin, laughed. "Nobody expects to fight in Russia. But here you are. Here we all are." The Zithri tried orbital bombardment. The Council of Sages refused permission. "If you destroy the resources, we have no reason to be there," Elder Voron said. Warlord Miho was killed during a night raid. Russian special forces infiltrated his bunker and eliminated him and his entire command staff. They left a message written in the snow, "Welcome to Russia." Admiral June realized the horrible truth. They were not fighting an army. They were fighting a country. They were fighting the land itself. They were fighting history. He opened the restricted archives again and found more fragments of the old warning. One sentence was clear: humanity does not fight wars to win. They fight wars until you lose. The snow continued to fall. The wind continued to howl. The temperature continued to drop. And the Zithri continued to die. 3 months into the invasion, Admiral June counted his remaining forces. Of the original 50,000 soldiers, only 15,000 were still combat ready. The 30,000 reinforcements who arrived in January had fared even worse. They were not prepared for the brutal Siberian winter. "How many did we lose yesterday?" June asked tiredly. 247, Admiral. Only 30 from combat. The rest froze to death or died from equipment failure, Commander Suki reported. The situation grew more desperate each day. Zithri soldiers who had conquered a dozen worlds now huddled in their heated shelters, afraid to go outside. Their advanced armor meant nothing against the cold. Their powerful weapons were useless when frozen solid. But something else bothered June even more. The humans had started using Zithri weapons against them. Russian engineers had captured alien technology and figured out how it worked within weeks. Now human soldiers carried energy rifles alongside their old machine guns. General Doyen watched a video of captured alien equipment being studied by Russian scientists. "How long until we can manufacture these ourselves?" he asked. 6 months, maybe less, the lead scientist, a woman named Yunji, replied. "Their technology is advanced but not impossible to understand. In some ways, it is simpler than ours because they rely on it too much." "What do you mean?" "They never learned to fight without their technology. We did. That makes us more dangerous." A massive blizzard hit in February. Visibility dropped to 0. Temperatures fell to -60°C. The Zithri lost an entire base during the storm. When the weather cleared, search teams found the base buried under 10 meters of snow. Everyone inside had frozen to death. Colonel Hanna led a raid that night. Her team moved through the storm like it was nothing. They wore skis and pulled sleds with supplies. They struck a Zithri command post, destroyed their communications equipment, and vanished back into the blizzard. A young Russian soldier named Mincio captured a Zithri officer during the raid. The alien was shivering despite his heated suit. "Why?" the officer asked in broken Russian. "Why do you keep fighting? You cannot win against our empire." Mincio smiled. "You still do not understand. This is not about winning. This is about teaching you that Earth is not for taking. Especially not Russia." More nations sent forces. Japanese soldiers arrived with cold weather gear. Brazilian volunteers came to fight. Even countries that had no connection to Russia sent help. The message was clear: humanity would stand together when threatened. Admiral June received a message from the Council of Sages. "You have been on Earth for 4 months. You control less territory now than you did after 1 week. Explain." June looked at his casualty reports before responding. "We underestimated them. The warning in the archives was correct. We should never have started a land war with humanity. We especially should never have invaded Russia." "That is unacceptable," Elder Voron replied. "Send the humans terms of surrender." June sent the message. The humans responded within an hour. General Doyen himself delivered the answer on a video call. "Admiral, we do not accept your surrender," Doyen said calmly, smoking a cigarette. "You misunderstand. I am offering you the chance to surrender to us." Doyen laughed so hard he nearly dropped his cigarette. "No, Admiral. You misunderstand. You came to our planet. You invaded our land. Now you will face the consequences. We do not want your surrender. We want you to remember this lesson forever." The call ended. That night, Russian forces launched a coordinated assault on every remaining Zithri position. They did not try to capture territory. They simply wanted the aliens to know they were surrounded and outmatched. Admiral June stood in his command center watching the attacks on multiple screens. Explosions lit up the night. Human soldiers moved with confidence through terrain that had killed thousands of Zithri. Only 8,000 of his soldiers remained combat-ready. They were trapped in a hostile land, in killing weather, fighting an enemy that seemed to grow stronger while they grew weaker. June finally did what he should have done months ago. He accessed the complete archive files from the first contact 800 years earlier. The final words of the last transmission from the 43rd Legion appeared on his screen. "Do not send help. Do not come here. Russia does not forgive invaders." Spring arrived in April, and with it came the thaw. The snow melted, revealing the frozen bodies of thousands of Zithri soldiers scattered across the Siberian landscape. Admiral June had only 8,000 troops left who could still fight. Most were sick, exhausted, and broken in spirit. June sent a message to General Doyen. "I request terms of withdrawal." Doyen replied within an hour. "Come to the meeting point alone. Unarmed." June traveled to a small village that had somehow survived the war. Russian soldiers stood guard, but they did not point their weapons at him. They simply watched with tired eyes. General Doyen sat at a wooden table outside a small house. He poured 2 cups of tea and gestured for June to sit. "You want to leave?" Doyen said. It was not a question. "Yes. We have lost. I admit defeat." "Defeat?" Doyen shook his head. "No, Admiral. You have not lost. You have learned. There is a difference." "I do not understand." Doyen sipped his tea slowly. "Napoleon came here with 600,000 soldiers. He left with 10,000. Hitler came with 3 million. He left with corpses. You came with 80,000. Now you have 8,000. Russia does not defeat invaders in glorious battles. Russia simply waits. Winter comes. The land takes its price. And invaders learn. What are your terms? You will leave. But first, your soldiers will rebuild every village they destroyed. They will repair every road. They will use their technology to fix what they broke. And you will leave all of your weapons and equipment behind. We will study it. We will learn from it." June felt anger rise in his chest. "That is humiliating." "Yes," Doyen agreed calmly. "It is meant to be. So that you remember. So that your people remember. So that in 800 years, when your descendants look at their archives, they will see clear records and know. Never invade Earth. Never start a land war with humanity. And never ever come to Russia with an army." June had no choice. He agreed. For 2 months, Zithri soldiers worked alongside Russian civilians rebuilding villages. An old woman named Hyri brought them hot soup while they worked. She spoke no Zithri and they spoke no Russian, but somehow they understood each other. On the last day, as the final Zithri soldiers prepared to board their ships, Hyrie approached Admiral June. She handed him a cup of tea and said something in Russian. The translator device spoke. You fought well. You were brave. But this is Russia. The land always wins. June took the tea and drank it. It was the first kind gesture a human had shown him in 6 months. He bowed to her and walked to his ship. The Zithri fleet left Earth's orbit and began the long journey home. Behind them they left their weapons, their vehicles, their technology, and the bodies of 72,000 soldiers. On Zenther Prime, the Council of Sages gathered. Elder Voron looked older now, more tired. The invasion was a complete failure. We have lost an entire fleet. Sage Kyung stood slowly. I warned you. The archives warned you. Now you know why that warning was preserved. The council voted unanimously to update their archives with new information. The entry read, Species, Human. Planet, Earth. Classification, Extreme Danger. Humanity has 197 nations and 7,000 languages. They fight each other constantly. But when threatened by outsiders they become one unified force. Never engage in terrestrial warfare with humans. Never underestimate their adaptability. And under no circumstances invade the territory called Russia. The land itself is a weapon. The winter does not forgive. The people do not forget. On Earth, world leaders returned to arguing about borders, trade agreements, and political differences. But in a secret United Nations meeting, they all agreed on one thing. They would keep the alien technology. They would study it. They would reverse engineer it. And they would be ready if anyone else tried to invade. In his Moscow office, General Doyen looked at satellite images of Siberia. The landscape was dotted with the wreckage of alien ships and equipment. He smiled and lit a cigarette. They came for resources, he said to Colonel Hanna. They left with a lesson.